Hey guys, what's up? It's Shla coming back to ya already with the final episode of the day of Walks with Shla. And yeah, there's not too much to say. I didn't get. It's actually funny. It's funny that I have those automated like limiting phrases like, "Oh, there's not too much to say." "Oh, I don't have too much to say." Isn't it comical that me of all people, like it's like I have that as like this subliminal subconscious programming? Like imagine if I can just get rid of that. Like I always have something to say. I don't know why I'm always just like instinctively telling the show like, "Oh, well, there's not that much to talk about. Oh, I don't know what to talk about." Really? Really? Is do I really? Like why do I keep saying that? It's crazy. Um I didn't actually get a chance to listen to the lunch episode's transcript, and I do remember what it was now. We were talking about like forgetfulness and how that's it's kind of a personal opinion. It's easily something like I probably have to work on or get over, but it's not like bad. It's not like a bad thing. But it just might not be an ideal thing. That's kind of where I'm at. And then what else is there? I mean, I don't know. But what I was going to do was listen. I plugged the transcript in GPT, but I was having a conversation with one of my coworkers that kind of reminded me, it kind of coincides with what I was talking about yesterday. Not what I was talking about, what I was thinking about before bed yesterday, which is it's really scary, and I think GPT just went straight for the throat with it, and it's scary. Um, and I believe it though. I think it's obviously like a really logical conclusion that all this surveillance tech and all these things, you know, I'm talking about using it for good, which is its ideal potential is, to create a humanity that's finally accountable, and you can finally see things objectively, and you can remove all like manipulation or lying because you can see everybody's thoughts, you can hold everybody accountable. I mean, it could be such a beautiful thing. It could really be the ushering in of the golden age, like just a full step forward for humanity. But the problem is human nature is not, I mean, the way humans operate, it's dark. It's it's very dark, it's very mindless, it's very vengeful, it's zombie like. It's that's why I use the term rotten and rotting, because I attribute it to a zombie like state. There's a majority, I think a firm majority of people who have no appreciation for these kind of dialogues. I would even question their conception of these types of dialogues. And it's incredibly concerning for very obvious reasons, right? And so, I don't know. I just feel like there's such a dark side. There's such a dark side to these things where potentially some people could be even more petty. They could be even darker with their intentions and what they intend to pursue and platform onto others. And it's scary. It's incredibly scary to think about that. And GPT's words were that it's likely going to get worse before it gets better. And sadly, I think that's probably the case. Hopefully, it's not. Of course, it's possible that things could be wrong. Its prediction could be wrong, but I happen to agree. And it's not something I think about often, but it's very stressful. It's very scary. The ways that tech could actually be used to make some people manipulate even further. It could be used to make some people even more vengeful, even darker, even less caring, less aware of things. All this tech to abuse, to harass. And that's really what people are going to be gunning for. You know, it's sad. It's really such a sad story. You know, it's such a sad story for humanity, but I know that's what's going to happen. People can't help themselves. People cannot help themselves but to be evil. And it's a scary thing. I mean, fortunately for myself, I always feel like I've been protected from a lot. I mean, there's parts of the world where you have to like claw yourself out, you know, and I'm just some like relatively weak guy, you know, who like fortunately has not crossed paths with somebody overly mean, but man, I mean, it kind of takes you into perspective a bit. It really like makes you like, wow, scary. It's just such an incredibly scary like thing to think about that. I mean, even myself with putting this content out here, making it public, it technically puts a target on me in a sense. You know, I'm speaking my mind, saying things, you know, the wrong person may completely disagree with. And then then they make it their life purpose to obsessively hate you. There's a lot of just horrible, dangerous human behaviors out there that, you know, could actually be made far worse very soon. I think that's very scary to think about. And not many people are very aware of it for obvious reasons. I think a lot of people are way too hopeful. A lot of people I think a lot of people have neither hope nor faith. That may be a double negative, but its truth is double positive. You know, they really just see things in the moment, and it's such a dangerous way to live. It's a dangerous way to live because often what's best in the moment is not best in long term. And if you're really going to have like a society of people who act that deranged, that limited about things, it's scary. I mean, it's scary to even have that conscious, to be trapped within that vessel. I mean, from my perspective, I still think it's scary even how even my own self, not having enough memory, knowing my own flaws, my own lack of conscientiousness, my own lack of mindfulness, and to imagine that a majority of the vessels which consciousness resides in on this planet, just to imagine that they're just a bunch of ruthless, rotting pigs is really scary. You know, it's just really scary. I mean, this content I'm making, it's not going to be appealing to many people. And like I said, I mean, my hope is not to become a superstar, but to just be able to subsist off of something. You know, if my work seems promising, obviously if I had a fan base of people who listened to it, they could get me a living wage, you know, and then I could create and speak even more. I've had this vision for it. You know, I think a live stream format with like very long live streams every day would be good. But again, these things, I don't know when or if that would happen. So for now, I think it's good to just practice, because either way, I've enjoyed it. I think I want to say my speaking skills have improved, but yeah, I guess to rewind back to the main point, it's just malice. It's that you think about a lot of people's intentions. You think of most people's intentions in life. Most people's intentions. And all the time that gets wasted in the drama, all the time that gets wasted on hatred, on negativity, on pettiness, on non-existing, hierarchical, talking down to, we talk a lot about hierarchy and these false precepts of ownership and how they're not real, higher ups we refer to them as, but a lot of times these people are neither high nor up. They're actually some of the lowest, least conscientious, most out of touch humans that you come across. And that's scary. It's scary to think that the people running the cards could actually be more reptilian minded. Now, I would hope that outside of the working class environment, the bigwigs would have some kind of calculated answer. Like I said, I hope they're doing what they're doing, even though it's going to cause like a pretty massive population collapse. I would hope that their intention is at least positive, but GPT warns me that a lot of these elites, it's really not positive. It's probably much messier than like I'm planning, and they're probably not being as careful as I would be in their shoes, because there is going to be some pretty significant population collapses. And we just recently talked about how, making it so, like, because eugenics is already here. We've talked about that, except it's probably the worst concept of eugenics, because we're not doing eugenics for a better humanity. We're actually actively, like, we're acting out basically a reverse eugenics, where the worst of us are probably going to be perpetuated, and then you're going to see a lot of potential minds lost. If you look historically, some of the greatest minds are really, they come from places you'd least expect. And so when you have a society that gets to the point which we are presently at, where it's only rich people who can reproduce and have kids in a normal way, that's going to cause a host of issues. And that's why I say it's reverse eugenics, because we're basically allowing somebody, as long as they're rich, their child can get pushed through. Even if their child is not gifted, even if their child does not really have potential, they can prop up their child with so much extra help and benefit and resources that now their child has this odd advantage. And so they seem like slightly smarter than average, but in reality, they spent $500,000 propping their, which without that $500,000 would be a below average kid. $5,000 on a child? You know what I'm saying? I mean, some of the greatest writers, some of the greatest speakers, they had nothing. Can you imagine if that money had been given to them? But instead, it's just randomly given to the children who are heirs to the throne. It's the children who belong in a family who's wealthy, and regardless of whether any of the genetics are good or anything like that, just doesn't matter. They'll just get like some extra special tutoring, some extra special, in the future, gene editing. Like maybe the billionaires' kids will get some kind of like IQ boost swap. Of course, it's not going to be in the immediate term. I don't think the tech is there. I know we have tech for gene editing muscle growth, but I'm sure you could probably eventually get to the point for gene editing for like faster gray matter growth or things like that. You know what I mean? It's interesting to think about, but you can see how it's like it's basically reverse eugenics, because you're shoveling money and resources into people who, like, the whole point of humanity is we don't know who's going to be the brilliant mind. You know, each birth sort of has a probability to it. Now, if there's minor ways that you can tweak that for the better, that's great. But allowing the current system to perpetuate, it is eugenics. It's here, but it's for the worst of us. It's you know, the worst of us are going to emerge from this. I mean, you think about a lot of these expensive cars, these giant luxurious SUVs, they have like screens in the back of the seats and stuff like that. Well, that's a rich family, but what's that child going to turn out like when they're overexposed to all those screens with no direction from parents who are rich enough to where the child never really has to do much besides maybe pass school? Maybe the parent can just pay off the college to get them the good degree. And what happens to a society like that, you know? So that's what I remind GPT, is that no, my ideas are not flirting with eugenics. Eugenics is already here. We need to reverse that course. We need to get back to at least a center, and that would require some adjustment. It would require some eugenics to kind of dig us out of the reverse eugenics hole that we're in. We're in a very negative, incentivizing bad outcomes. We need to at least get it back to neutral. We need to at least get it back to what, you know, what would just be neutral, what would be fair, you know? And that's why I have to say to GPT, who's always, oh, no, I think GPT, I think you need a little bit of perspective. I think you're not realizing that eugenics is already here. It's just negative eugenics, and how scary and detrimental it already has been, and the effects are just going to get greater. The effects are going to get greater. America is not on a good track, and worship of the rich without credit, without merit. Sorry, I think merit is a more accurate word. Worship of the rich without merit is surely to lead to just utter disaster and destruction. If you have a society where it rewards work and it rewards people who do more, that's a good thing. But if you have a society where, you know, somebody's able to spend $1 million on their child to get them a bunch of extra treatment, and then sure, that child, I mean, they seem all right, you know, they seem like good, and you don't really want to judge it. But it's like, man, that had $1 million spent on that child. We could have fed 500,000 children with that money. And then what if one of those 500,000 children was like the next Einstein, but we missed it, you know, because we couldn't get more people into at least like environments where there was potential to be seen. Now, again, in my opinion, I think surveillance could solve all these problems. With surveillance, you don't have to rely on like pretty poor and flawed human judgment. People who have potential, it would already be known, and resources would already be allocated appropriately. But I think you get my knowledge. Like, it's oftentimes not going to be productive to just have randomly like the top 5 or 10% richest families able to give their kids super special education, and then the bottom 90% are just stuck with some trash education, that's not going to have a good outcome. If you actually gave as many people as possible a good solid education, you would see more people emerge who could actually surpass some of the eugenic nepo babies naturally and far more efficiently. But instead, all the attention is given to the externally attractive and the people who maybe have the most charisma and flair, but who oftentimes are not really the most insightful or necessarily the best for the job. Some people are a little more sheepish and timid, and it's sad that they don't get to see the light. And that's why I think it's one of the most hopeful things about surveillance, is that we really could have that interesting reality that, I hope to see for sure. But it could be worse before it gets better. People could use surveillance to, again, be more petty, waste more time with drama. And so that's really the thing. I mean, if humanity didn't engage in any drama and instead prioritized productivity, we would already be miles ahead. We'd already be miles ahead. And until that changes, there's not a whole lot that can be done. Just a bunch of time wasted, a bunch of people whose potentials are squandered and wasted because resources are so condensed to an upper echelon of humans, not based on need and not based on merit, not based on who deserves the resources, but just based on chance, based on whose family they were born into. And nobody cares. Nobody seems to care because, again, based on my last commentary, most people live within what is and not what could be or what should be or what would be. They just live in what is. And that's all they can really see. It's all they can really comprehend, I'm pretty sure. That's my only really theory to kind of justify things. People just can't live in hypotheticals. All right, anyways, it's been schla, but now it's time to buy schla. So, see ya schla.